York, now nearly 2,000 dead, an increase of 400 in just 24 hours. Tonight, the images from inside an ER in New York City. The ER full, the ICU full, patients in hallways. And now New York's governor warning the peak of this in New York City might not arrive until the end of this month, several more weeks. Tonight, the vice president and his alarming new words, with the world having seen what happened in Italy. Vice President Pence now saying the White House modeling suggests Italy may be the most comparable area to the U.S. And what President Trump said moments ago. Tonight, news from the hotspots emerging across this country, Michigan, Louisiana, Texas among them. And tonight, after weeks of resisting, Florida, now weeks into this, imposing stay-at-home restrictions. And the scene in California tonight, the pleas for help from the front lines. We also have new reporting coming in, ABC News obtaining the orders given to public and private EMS services in the New York City area. The paramedics answering these calls, and now an acknowledgement that near-death patients might not be able to be saved, with city hospitals overrun with coronavirus. What the guidelines now say for these crews on the front lines. Across the country tonight, the doctors who say even basic antibiotics are difficult to get. Another fearing he will have to deny ventilators to patients who need them. And the patients with pre-existing conditions, compromised immune systems. What one cancer patient says she was told if a choice has to be made. Tonight, the cruise ship headed toward Florida confirmed cases on board, at least 4 dead, including an American. And officials in Florida saying they don't want the ship to dock there. The dire need on board that U.S. aircraft carrier, cases now climbing to 93, and we have learned of new action tonight. The families across this country and the economic toll. The first of the month, bills due, and tonight the laid-off workers on the line for days trying to get unemployment. And that question about stimulus checks, do you need to apply or will they come automatically? We get answers tonight. And Dr. Jen Ashton with your questions. And tonight, the important headline for Americans 60 and older.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on this Wednesday night. And tonight, the numbers now tell this story of a growing crisis here in the U.S. The president has said prepare for a very painful few weeks, and tonight the vice president making news as well. With what he said just today, and we have all seen what played out in Italy. It is still playing out there, and now the vice president saying that the White House modeling suggests Italy may be the most comparable area to the United States. Tonight, the numbers here. In just 2 weeks' time, we've gone from 7,700 reported cases to more than 206,000. 1 month ago, March 1st, there was one reported death from the virus in the U.S. Tonight, the death toll is more than 4,600. More states now heeding the call to flatten the curve. At least 45 states now imposing stay-at-home restrictions. Florida, Mississippi, Georgia imposing those restrictions just today. Here in New York City tonight, video provided by Mount Sinai, Queens, patients lining the ER hallways there. That field hospital in Central Park tonight, up and running. We were there as the first coronavirus patient arrived today. Of course, many more to come. And New York's governor tonight, Andrew Cuomo, saying the peak of this here in New York, the hardest hit area so far, won't likely come until the end of April. And that as many as 16,000 New Yorkers could die. Just before we came on the air tonight, we have now learned of the grim guidelines being given to EMS first responders in the New York City area, and we'll have that for you in a moment. There were also those 2 cruise ships held off the coast of Florida, hundreds of sick passengers and crew on board. 4 have died, including an American. Authorities don't want them to dock at Florida. Temporary hospitals going up in Detroit, in Vicksburg, Mississippi, Dallas, parts of California tonight. And of course, as we do every night, we will get to it all and carefully. And the president saying just moments ago, difficult days ahead, a few days from now, are going to be horrific. We begin with ABC's Whit Johnson tonight.
Tonight, a doctor taking us inside New York's Mount Sinai Queens Hospital, now pushed to the brink.
This is our ED. You can see all the rooms are filled. Usually these halls are very neat and empty. And now you can see there's patients everywhere because of this. Makes it very hard to work, and we're trying our best to treat everyone that we can.
Many of the patients immediately put on oxygen.
All these patients here sitting out in the hallways because we are full.
Healthcare workers on the front lines making painful sacrifices.
I said goodbye to my wife and my daughter
for who knows how long. It's going to be several weeks probably before I see him in person again.
It's frustrating that, you want people to get better. Everyone in the hospital is working overtime and putting their hearts out into it, trying to save these people's lives. And, it takes a toll because you're both physically and mentally exhausted.
And tonight, news on Dr. Colleen Smith, who shared these images from one of the first hard-hit ERs in Queens.
All the patients in this room, all the feet that you see, they all have COVID.
Now confirming she's tested positive herself for COVID-19. Hospitals so overwhelmed, iconic public spaces now used to treat patients. This is really an extraordinary moment. You could see that ambulance pulling up and pulling in with the very first COVID-19 patient to be brought here and treated at this field hospital in the middle of Central Park. This facility has 68 beds. Medical teams and volunteers from Samaritan's Purse stepping up to meet the need.
Some will be transferring who are already ventilated, and so we will then transfer to our ventilators to take care of them.
The death toll in New York State close to 2,000, surging by nearly 400 overnight. One projection showing 16,000 New Yorkers could die. And tonight, word of the youngest known victim, a 6-week-old baby, passing away from complications of the virus in nearby Connecticut.
What we're looking at now is the apex, top of the curve, roughly at the end of April, which means another month of this.
The governor shutting down playgrounds, calling on the NYPD to enforce the rules.
How reckless and irresponsible and selfish for people not to do it on their own. I mean, what else do you have to know? What else do you have to hear?
The White House Coronavirus Task Force with that grim projection that even if Americans follow the restrictions, 100 to 240,000 people could die in the U.S. At least 45 states now with stay-at-home orders, but tonight growing pressure on the rest. In Florida, the governor reversing course, now issuing a statewide stay-at-home order for its 21 million residents. The governor abandoning his county-by-county approach after consulting with the White House.
I'm going to be doing an executive order today directing all Floridians to limit movements and personal interactions outside the home.
In Louisiana, a jump in cases. Nearly a third of hospitalized patients are on ventilators.
Those numbers are staggering, and looks like there's no end in sight. And if these numbers continue, we will be maxed out at hospitals and ventilators by the end of the weekend.
Just last night, congregants flocking to this church, defying bans on social gatherings. But Vice President Pence today telling our Byron Pitts he had a message for the faithful.
We really believe this is a time when people should avoid gatherings of more than 10 people. And so we continue to urge churches around America to heed to that.
Across the country, field hospitals going up from Massachusetts to Illinois, where cases now top 5,000. And in Seattle, this exhibition hall, soon to be a 250-bed hospital, complete with 2 operating rooms. But tonight, the mounting loss of life is taking its toll. 34-year-old Scott Blanks from Whittier, California, was initially sent home from the hospital, only to return days later with pneumonia, a ventilator unable to save him.
He never had any complications or never was hospitalized, nothing. It's kind of unreal right now because we weren't even allowed to go see him.
Just awful. Whit Johnson back with us live from New York tonight. And Whit, I wanted to get back to those new guidelines for first responders in the New York area. They now have new orders, guidelines about how to handle cardiac patients. And it would seem that this is somewhat of a tacit acknowledgement that certain near-death patients will likely not be able to be saved because of hospitals across the city already overrun with coronavirus patients.
David, these new orders obtained by ABC News outline specific guidelines on how to respond to cardiac emergencies, telling EMS crews in the field that if they cannot get a pulse on their own, that they should not take that patient to the hospital. These orders also reflect concerns about CPR itself spreading coronavirus, a sign of just how stretched thin these emergency rooms are. David.
Very difficult decisions in days ahead. Whit, thank you. And we stay on the need for ventilators tonight. Doctors who fear they will have to make choices. And tonight, Americans with pre-existing conditions, compromised immune systems, they have real concerns and what one cancer patient told us that she was told. Here's ABC's Matt Gutman tonight from California.
Tonight, with fatalities spiking over 25% in just a single day nationwide, health workers on the front lines making grim life and death decisions.
The basic antibiotic are really hard to get. Even medications to sedate patients are becoming more short as we're using them more and more often.
So you're saying it's not just PPE that's short anymore, it's like the basic tools of the trade of medicine.
Yeah.
In New York State, they project needing 25,000 more ventilators. Akshay Ganju is an ER doctor in Westchester.
I'm nervous about one day having to look a daughter in the eye and not being able to say that I did everything that I could, that we don't have a ventilator for her mom, that we're going to leave her on oxygen and hope for the best.
Valerie Roberts from Sacramento is a grandmother and cancer survivor.
Nobody's allowed in my house.
Healthcare providers are warning people to stay away from emergency rooms unless they're very sick. They're also warning the vulnerable, like Roberts. She says an oncology supervisor called her to say she should try to avoid the ER for her own safety in the event of a surge. She told her San Francisco station KGO that the doctor also said this.
I wouldn't be probably a candidate for a ventilator if it was between me and a healthy person, no. The conversation was tough in and of, if you get this virus and get complications with it, we need to discuss comfort care for you.
Comfort care as in morphine?
Yes.
Her hospital released a statement about the conversation saying clinicians regularly communicate with medically vulnerable patients to fulfill their current health care needs. We will do everything we can to fulfill those wishes, both now and in the event of a hospital surge. Mandy Hall was on duty when a desperately ill COVID patient came in.
He required immediate intervention for life-saving measures.
The virus had recently killed the man's wife, but they delayed intubating him because he had a very special wish: to see his daughter one more time.
Did he tell you that he understood that once he was intubated, he might not come out of it?
He did. That is the reason why he requested to speak with his daughter before he was intubated.
Excruciating moments for all of these families already affected by this. Matt Gutman with us live from Los Angeles again tonight. And Matt, LA County, they've announced an unusually high percentage of those hospitalized just today have no underlying conditions.
That's right, David. A startling 76% of people hospitalized here in LA County are otherwise healthy. And statewide, the number of ICU cases has quadrupled just since Friday, David. But there is a sliver of good news. 34,000 retired medical professionals or professionals out of work have enrolled to get back in the workforce just over the past 2 days. David.
Incredible the risk they face, and they're willing to do it. We appreciate it, Matt. Thank you. Yep. We're following that worsening situation off the coast of Florida tonight. 2 cruise ships, hundreds of sick people on board, many testing positive for coronavirus. 4 people have now died, including an American. Tonight, the desperate struggle for a plan. Authorities in Florida say they do not want the ship to dock there. Here's Gio Benitez.
As the 2 Holland America cruise ships approach the Florida coast, Amy Wee Jones fears time is running out for her parents on board. Her father has severe pneumonia. Her mother has a fever.
There's no time. These people need to get off the ship. There are people even more ill than my father.
The Zandam left Buenos Aires nearly a month ago. Now 200 passengers and crew are sick. 4 passengers are dead. Everyone on board desperate to dock in Florida. But Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis reluctant to let non-Floridians into the state.
Clearly, we're going to be willing to accept any Floridians who are on board.
That's good news for the 49 passengers from Florida, but there are still questions about how the more than 250 other Americans on the ships are getting home, along with hundreds of foreign travelers.
So let's get to Gio now, tracking this all day long for us. And Gio, I know Florida is now calling on the cruise company to come up with some sort of a plan for letting some of these passengers get off before any plan is approved.
That's right, David. And so far, they say Holland America has not submitted any of those plans, but the port says they need to see those plans 24 hours in advance. David.
All right, Gio, thank you. We also have new reporting tonight on that U.S. aircraft carrier with confirmed cases of coronavirus on board. Now 93 cases tonight. The USS Theodore Roosevelt seeing cases climbing from 23 last week to 93 now. Tonight, after a desperate plea from the ship's commander, new action. That ship now in Guam, 1,000 sailors already off the carrier, another 1,700 expected to follow. Next to the staggering economic toll for families across this country. As we reported here last week, 3.3 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits. This week, the toll could be even higher. We will learn that in the coming hours. Tonight here, the laid-off workers on the line for days trying to get unemployment. And of course, that question about stimulus checks. Do you need to apply or will they come automatically? ABC's Rebecca Jarvis getting answers for you.
Tonight, we're hearing it from laid-off workers across the country.
This layoff completely changes our way of living.
My bills are coming in. They don't care.
I'm just praying for everybody.
With at least 45 states now on lockdown, layoffs are surging, and the phone lines and websites to apply for unemployment insurance are jammed. Jose Vera in Florida just lost his job as a graphic designer.
This is my 5th day trying to apply for unemployment. And it keeps crashing, and I try calling and the calls drop.
The St. Louis Fed predicts the number of unemployed could reach a staggering 47 million Americans, temporarily sending the unemployment rate above 32%, 3 times the worst of the Great Recession. A daunting reality for Ashley Patterson, an out-of-work bartender in Frankenmuth, Michigan.
I'm 5 months pregnant, and we have a 5-year-old daughter.
Ashley's husband, Justin, wounded in a helicopter crash while serving in Iraq. But after their story ran Monday on ABC's 2020,
I have at least 3 bills due as of right now.
A giant outpouring of support. Strangers offering to chip in. Her boss, Jim Jones, setting up a GoFundMe that has raised nearly $6,000.
And David, you do have to apply for unemployment insurance. The states are working to improve that experience, but you do not have to apply for those $1,200 stimulus checks. Those should be directly deposited into your bank account, assuming you filed your taxes in 2018. David?
Rebecca, I know you'll stay on all of this for us. Thank you. When we come back, Dr. Jen Ashton answering your questions and the important headline tonight for Americans 60 and older.
There will be parties again soon, and family gatherings. There will be parades, and sporting events, and concerts. To help our communities when they come back together, respond to the 2020 census now. Spend a few minutes online today to impact the next 10 years of healthcare, infrastructure, and education. Go to 2020census.gov and respond today to make America's tomorrow brighter. It's time to shape our future.
I am totally blind. And Non-24 can make me show up too early or too late, or make me feel like I'm not really there. Talk to your doctor and call 844-234-24.